T'es la meilleure chose qui m'est arrivée, mais aussi la pire chose qui m'est arrivée. Ce jour où je t'ai rencontré, j'aurais peut-être préféré que ce jour ne soit jamais arrivé. La pire des bénédictions, la plus belle des malédictions. De toi je devrais m'éloigner, mais comme dit le dicton, plutôt qu'être seul, mieux vaut être mal accompagné. Tu sais ce qu'on dit, sois près de tes amis les plus chers, mais aussi
encore plus près de tes adversaires.
Mais ma meilleure ennemie.
So, I'm not really sure how to put into words the perfection that was Arcane Episode 7. It's so tough to implement something like a multiverse in today's fiction. And I think the reason for that is because alternate universes are truly all the rave now in story writing. From Miles Morales, to Marvel in general, to a plethora of other media, it's kinda like the new time travel. But the toughness comes with increase in scrutiny of how it's pulled off and why it's even implemented in the first place. A lot of stories seem to use it to try to add an artificial layer of complexity to a plot, a device for why certain events happen, or a way of making something more profound than it actually is. But what Arcane uses it for, and what a lot of mediums are failing to do with this trope, is that they remembered to add a little something called...
Can we just pretend like it's the first time?
Encore plus près de tes adversaires. Mais ma meilleure ennemie c'est toi. Fuis-moi. Le pire c'est toi et moi. Mais ma meilleure ennemie c'est toi. Fuis-moi.
Now, when I initially saw the first images revealed of Episode 7 and how they were going to go for an alternate universe trope, I, and likely many others, kind of groaned at the thought of this. I mean, we've seen this everywhere. Why does a show as great as this need something like the multiverse? I was praying they weren't just doing this as a pretentious way of adding more complexity to an already deep and layered story. But as soon as I dove into the episode, a sigh of relief came over me as I was reminded, oh right, this is Arcane, a show with near goated writing and emotional storytelling. What the hell was I worried about? One of my favorite aspects of the beginning of Ekko's journey into this universe was just how uncomfortable and conflicted he was about it. This isn't anything new we see with this kind of thing, but I just love how it's portrayed. Ekko doesn't simply forget about what he experienced in his old world. He is constantly paranoid and skeptical of everything he experiences, whether it's Jinx's intentions, knowing what he knows, Vi's death and the lack of understanding about it, as well as his failure at first in coming to terms with the fact that a world this good and peaceful could actually exist. And this leads to a hardened and steadfast Ekko bull-rushing his way to get back home with the help of Heimerdinger. And this is why Ekko is one of my top favorite characters in the show. He has such a strong sense of responsibility toward his home and people, that he is so set on returning home to those who need him at the expense of his own comfort and pleasure. And he even displays this, maybe to too overwhelming of an extent, when he pushes away any emotions toward Jinx and Vi's death at first, which Jinx, or I should say Powder in this universe, becomes angry at him due to his lack of compassion and respect for Vi's shrine and Powder's emotions. But as Ekko takes more time to reflect on his situation and how serene this universe is compared to the one he comes from, he comes back to his empathetic self as he becomes more present within his quote-unquote new universe. And it even reaches a point where he creates a painting of who Vi would have been to Powder after thinking more and more about his mistake in disregarding her feelings just because of what she did in a different universe. This is such smart writing, and I couldn't get enough of these kinds of interactions where Ekko was truly unsure how to act given this new world's path that was so different from the strife that he was used to. And let's talk about Powder real quick. First of all, I love how they didn't completely change her personality, but showed a realistic image of who she might have been had the incident in Silco's lair not happened. Extremely smart, yet fearing ambitious endeavors due to her comfortable life in Vander's bar. Someone who is able to contribute so much to the world, but is still quirky yet humble, to not want to lose sight of who she is if she were to achieve those grand goals. But I love how this version of Ekko helps to inspire her to go to greater lengths by helping him and Heimerdinger with the time machine. It's honestly one of my favorite montages in the season, just because of how important yet slice of lifey the whole process is. Two humans working on the same goal to improve their situation, but with that friendship and genuine closeness mixed in. And I could even say the same of Heimerdinger's little folk tune mixed in with Jace and Ekko's contrasting journeys in their multiverses as well. And when all is nearly said and accomplished with the time machine project, we get to what I would call one of the greatest scenes in all of animation, heck, maybe even shows in general. This dance scene perfectly encompasses everything perfect about how Arcane executed the multiverse. First of all, they really made this scene feel dreamlike. From the beautiful French song by Stromae, to the use of kind of coral-colored strobe lights, and of course, the intentionally lower frame rate dancing. I loved this detail, and I've been hearing things about how it's 4 frames per second because of Ekko's 4-second time rewind ability. And while I love that, I also think it's meant to be a moment that both of them want to savor in something less than real time, something slower, so that they can appreciate each frame, each moment in a much slower and more present way. There's something about dance scenes like this that are always so magical to me. One of my other favorite multiverse movies of all time, Mr. Nobody, also used a dance scene similar to this, and this episode really reminded me of that movie and who you might end up with, or just how different things can turn out to be with the slightest ripple effect, or butterfly effect. And then of course, the moment on the rooftop is such an otherworldly scene, and nothing about it feels forced. It's so natural. Ekko still resisting at first, but then coming to terms with the fact that maybe it's just time to enjoy this moment. Maybe it's time to experience the love that I could have had, even if it's just one time, even if it's for the first time. And I promise that I'll never forget it. All in all, this episode, and both Ekko's and Powder's experiences, really represented a perfect dream. And watching this episode felt like experiencing a dream. The immersion of the world building of this new universe felt like something that really could have gotten its own mini-season or spin-off. And that comes to show how good this show is and how masterful these animators, musicians, and producers are at capturing emotion on screen. At the end of the day, enjoy the universe that you're in. Your choices matter more than you think. Choose wisely, and love whatever comes next. There might be another you out there who would die to be in your shoes. 'Cause who knows? It might have already happened.